our last day for the first week. Woo! We've got this. All right, so we've been working on theme. We talked about finding theme through conflict, through dialogue and actions. And so we're going to kind of put all those things together today. And we're going to be reading a story from our reading book called Ranita, the Frog Princess. Now, I will tell you there are some very difficult words in there. There's some Spanish words, but you can listen to it or just sound them out the best you can. As a practice, I'm going to go through a very short story. Now, this is actually a drama, which is what Ranita the Frog Princess is. So drama is like a play. It has to have three main parts or three components in order to be a drama. First of all, it has to have characters, okay? So there's a list of characters, just like in your book, okay? The second thing, it has acts or scenes. So this one that I'm reading is very short, so it's only going to have one scene or one act. In your book, it will have more than one. And it also, the third thing, it has to have a setting, stage, and it gives you directions on what to do if you're acting it out. So as you can see here, we have the setting, tells us the time and place, and then the directions are always in parentheses, and those are things that you don't read out loud. You read them in your head and you do those things. So here we go. The story is called Grant and the Flower Stem. Now remember, we're still looking for the theme, which is what is the lesson, what is the moral, what is it trying to teach us, okay? And we're going to find the evidence that prove it, okay? Here we go. Our three characters are Grant, which is an ant, Beatrice, which is a bee, and Frank, which is another bee. The setting is a field in Kansas. Grant has wandered away from his work and has fallen asleep. The next morning, he climbs to the top of a sunflower stem and finds a small house made of beeswax, and no one is home. Grant says, "What is this place? It looks like my house, but everything is smooth and shiny. Everything in my house is made of dirt and so rough. Oh man, I would love to live here." Beatrice comes in and says, "Who are you? And more importantly, what are you doing here?" Grant says, "Oh, I'm so sorry. My name is Grant, and I just saw the stem to your house, and I climbed up. I didn't know what I would find, but your house is lovely. Oh, please don't sting me." Beatrice laughs. "It's nice to meet you. Stand up straight and tall. I haven't stung anyone in years. Not unless they deserve it." Grant says, "Whew, that's a relief. I have heard stories about little ants that wander away and are stung by bees. Whew, I hear bees are very cranky." "Oh, goodness, no. It takes a lot to get me irritated. Someone has to be very unpleasant to make me a grouch. I am usually very friendly. You should watch out for my husband, however. He's grumpier than I am." Grant says, "Is he going to sting me?" Beatrice says, "My goodness, Grant, you are one nervous ant. You shouldn't worry so much. He won't sting you."
"Good afternoon, Beatrice. Whose turn is it to make soup?"
He looks at Grant and says,
"Who are you? And what are you doing in my house?"
"I'm sorry, sir. Your wife has been very generous to me. She offered me some tasty soup, so please don't sting me."
Frank says, "Really? He thinks I'm gonna sting him."
He thinks all bees do it just to see. He thinks all bees do is sting ants to sting them. And Grant says, "All of the stories that I've heard about bees are just terrifying."
"Let me calm you down. Have you ever met a bee before?"
"Well, no, not before you two." "I'll tell you what. We are going to feed you, and then Frank will fly you home. I'd like you to tell other ants about us and let them know that we are not beasts. We are insects like everyone else. I'd also like you to be more careful about believing all the stories that you hear about other folks. Whew, I will, and thank you so much for not stinging me. You're welcome, Grant. So, in here, now a lot of these, I told you who was talking because obviously you can't see the words and otherwise you might have been a little confused. But remember, normally when we read and it has the character's name, we don't say their name, we just read what they're saying. Now, a couple of things about this. We need to determine the theme. Now, in this one, the theme is mentioned right at the very end for us, and it says, I think you need to be more careful about believing all the stories that you hear about other folks. Okay? So, in this story, he had heard all these terrible things and they weren't true at all. The bees ended up being very nice people. So, that's one of the themes. The theme is, don't believe everything that you hear, right? Don't make assumptions before you know the truth, okay? So, and some evidence to show that is, Beatrice was very kind to him. She gave him the soup, okay? Frank comes in. Frank is very nice. He offers to fly him home. Therefore, all these terrible things that he'd heard about them were very untrue. So, remember, that is a lesson that we can learn as well and that we can teach others, right? Even though you may hear terrible things like, Mrs. Seekers is the meanest teacher ever, okay? You don't have to believe everything you hear, okay? Don't make assumptions without knowing. See you guys. Enjoy the book, Ranita, the Frog Princess.